Do you ever feel like you're sometimes just spinning the wheels and doing all the things and it's just not working? You're not growing and it looks like you should be growing. You're doing all the right things, right? But it's just not moving the needle. Well, don't worry. You're in the right spot because what if I told you that the secret to scaling your business and landing those dream clients was just one conversation away? This episode is brought to you by Metricool. From planning to publishing to understanding what's actually working, Metricool gives you data-driven control. And with their built-in AI tools and competitor tracking, you'll stop guessing and start growing. Just click the link in the show notes for 30 free days of premium access and make sure to use the code Katie30. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Today, I'm sitting down with someone who's been a huge inspiration, not just for me, but for creative entrepreneurs all over the globe. And, well, my bestie, Gianna, she's a huge super fan. But she is excited that he's on the show today. I'm super excited that he's on the show today. I had the opportunity to connect with him way back during the Clubhouse days and just been following all the things he's doing online and great content. I'm talking about none other than Chris Doe. He is the founder of The Future, an Emmy Award-winning designer, an educator, and before we even hit record here, an international speaker that's globe-trotting all over the world. So if you ever see him on a speaker lineup, make sure you book your ticket to that event. He is all over helping people build an online community that's really just all about helping creatives succeed. And if you've ever felt stuck or just wondered how you could get those dream clients and really grow your brand, well, you're in for a treat. Yay! Chris is opening up about his journey in today's episode and some of the lessons he learned and most importantly, some of the strategies that you can begin implementing. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me on Rocky Mountain Marketing.
Thanks for having me. You could just put your friend on blast there.
I did. Well, because like I said, she shares a lot of your posts that you make on LinkedIn. Like I see her reshare them. And when I told her that I was interviewing you, she said, "Shut the front door." And I said, "Well, that's." I was like, "Yeah, I'm excited that he's going to be on." So any questions that you want to ask him? And so I got a couple questions from my good friend
Okay.
Gianna that we will be asking during today's show, but so people who might not be familiar with you, which would
Yes.
shock me, but if anybody's listening, they're like, okay, who's Chris? Tell me a little bit about Chris and really let's go back to the early days of Chris and really tell us what sparked your vision to help create the future and empower creative entrepreneurs.
I'm a lifelong educator. And while I was running my service company, 5 years out, I started to teach. And I taught at Art Center, Otis, and Cal Arts, schools here in Southern California that are really well regarded, highly regarded as private design and art schools. And in that period, I thought there's got to be a better way to do this than to have a handful of students because it's a limited class size. They have excellent low student to teacher ratio, and that was really good. And it wasn't really even a plan at that point when my former classmate, Jose Caballé, said, let's go make YouTube content together. And I resisted. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's for like wannabes and amateurs and people who want to dance on camera or do something. I am not interested in any of that. Plus, I have real clients. I don't want to alienate any of them because if I say something that, once it's published on the internet, doesn't it last forever? So I had all that resistance, which many of your listeners, your audience might feel in their hearts like, yeah, what do I say? Does anyone care? And will I say something that's going to F up my whole business? And we don't want to do any of that, obviously. Well, you kind of know what happens because obviously I say yes. He brings me into this. And then I realize the potential of using a publicly available, free to use medium that can broadcast to everyone in the world. That's really, really powerful. So instead of teaching 20 students or 15 students at a time, I have the potential to teach 200 students at a time or even more. That really sparks something in me. And it's something I've continued in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that it is a major hurdle of putting yourself out there, right? It's oh man, I could put myself on YouTube, I could make a podcast, but I mean, what if I love how you said like what if I alienate some of my current clients? And I think that, every entrepreneur has obstacles that they're facing, whether it's them being afraid to do a YouTube channel or maybe it's them just being a little hesitant to go on social media. What was one of the most significant challenges that you faced early on that you think would help the audience members here of Rocky Mountain Marketing, and how did you overcome it?
Well, one of my challenges was I always saw myself as a behind the camera talent, as a director, not an on camera or in front of camera talent. So just being able to hold yourself, to have posture, like correct posture, and speak to the camera in coherent ways, to be able to string ideas together and not to be totally grossed out by the sound of your own voice or your image on camera. It takes a while to get over that. I think we all have this imagination or fantasy about how we sound and look to others. And we get away with it because whenever you look at yourself in the mirror, you see yourself at certain angles, but not at the whole angle. That's why when you show someone their photo or their video, they're like, do I really look that bad? Because we're seeing ourselves through an ideal lens or an angle. And then when we hear ourselves, the way we're reprocessing our own voice in our head, it sounds different than when you hear it being recorded. And it takes time. And I remember very clearly in the early days, somebody would play an edit and it would make me cringe so hard. I would say to them, if you see me walking by, turn it off. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see anything. Turn it off. Wear your headphones. I do not want to hear myself. And I remember asking Jose at one point, and he said, do you like hearing yourself? And he said the funniest thing to me because he's a loud extrovert. He's like, I love listening to myself. And I was like, that's kind of weird, but who likes that? He goes, I want to listen to myself. And so now, many years into it, after having forced myself to listen to my own voice, I actually do enjoy listening to my own voice again to see like, oh, that was kind of funny. Or I was being a jerk at that point. Like, what's wrong with me? And just being able to take it all in without judging yourself too harshly.
That's so true, and it's amazing too with voice, just how powerful it is. Like, it has such a you can tell if somebody's reading something. You can tell if someone's, passionate about something or not, and just by hearing the fluctuations. And I come from radio. Like, I started my career as a radio journalist, and it took me a very long time to appreciate my voice. I was really self-conscious about it because it is higher. And a lot of women in radio have these nice, deep, sexy voices, and mine's not. And so I was very self-conscious about hearing myself on the radio. So I totally get it. And sometimes it is just listening to yourself over and over and over again that really kind of helps you,
Yeah.
learn to appreciate it. I know I called out Jana, my bestie, at the beginning of this episode, and for her, she mentions a lot about how instrumental you were, and the future was for her when she started building out her branding business. So, what's driving you? I mean, like, there is it the community that you've built? Is it because I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we start going as kind of sometimes maybe things are successful and we can feel a little bit like we're in a rut, but what helps you stay driven so that you can continue growing and being that resource for so many creatives out there?
I think I can answer this in a couple different ways. Number one is I think most of us go through this two-phase journey in our life. The first part is just to provide for ourselves, for our families, and the people we care about. So it's about making money. And then you get to a certain point when you realize I've made the money or I made enough of it, and enough depends on who you are and your spending habits. And then you start to look for meaning. So in the beginning, you make money, and then the phase two is about making meaning. And luckily for me, around 40-ish, early 40s, I realized I don't need to make any more money. I could retire comfortably. And so the primary motivating factor for me in my life is now removed because I don't need to do it anymore. I own property, I have investments, and we're good financially speaking. Now I feel like all that work that I've done in the first 20 or so years of my professional life, now I get to explore what I want to do with my life. And I look at the education business that I'm in as one perpetual hobby that I get to impact the lives of others. And it's super rewarding for me. And I'm no longer interested in making money. The ironic part to this is the less I care about making money, the more financial opportunities present themselves to me. People want to buy this company. They want to invest. They want to give me seed capital. They want to partner and collaborate. And sponsors show up to say, hey, do you want to do something with us? And so I find that quite to be quite remarkable. And I'm not looking for it, but then yet it keeps finding me. And I think that's really cool. The second part to this, and the way I would like to answer this, is there's a book. It's called Delivering Happiness, written by the late Tony Hsieh, founder of Zappos. And he talks about it in the final chapters of the book about we spend a lot of time treating ailments and sickness, but we don't spend enough time studying happiness. So in the kind of the pursuit of the science of happiness or joy, he says there's basically four pillars, and I hope I'm getting this part right. Number one is perceived control. Do you feel like you have control over your life? And when we find ourselves in situations where we don't feel like we have control, we have a boss who's barking at us, or an algorithm that seems to have its own mind, or we're stuck in traffic and we need to be somewhere, it's a very stressful thing. That's the opposite of happiness. So perceived control is really important. Number two is perceived progress. Are we making progress in our lives, in our parenting skills, in our personal development, in our gym goals, whatever it is? If we feel like we're moving forward, I think we're going to be a lot happier. Number three, it's about belonging, feeling that we belong somewhere within a community, that we feel safe, and there are people that have our shared values and beliefs. That's really important. And number four is a higher purpose. Do we believe that there's something else that's bigger than us, bigger than just providing for our friends and family, that compels us to move forward? And in pursuing this education business that I'm in, helping others, I think I have all four tied up into a nice little package with a bow on it. That's what motivates me.
I love that answer. And honestly, it's from, like you said, the first 20 years working really hard, and now you're doing something that you love and makes you happy. And I mean, what's better than work being something that makes you happy, right? I want to talk a little bit about how, because you mentioned this earlier about having the clients, and I think that so many of us, it's getting to that point where you're at right now. You know, like being able to have the clients and the revenue to support that happy lifestyle. And you've you've collaborated on some massive projects, and worked with some huge enterprises. I found, like, you know, with my podcast and, you know, through my personal brand and everything, working at it longer and creating good content, you know, the sponsors do start showing up, the collaborations do start happening. But getting those big clients, you know, I think that can you guide us through your process for attracting and securing some of these larger clients, because you've worked with some huge names?
Okay. The future, because of the engagement that we get, because of the number of followers, and those are two important things in how narrow we are in what we talk about, create a very clear picture as to people who would like to work with us. So we worked with large corporations, Fortune 500 companies, because they see our audience and they see the engagement and they would like to tap into that audience. Luckily for us, we've not had to pursue them. When your content is good enough, you don't have to chase people. You get to choose them. They follow you and they ask you on how to collaborate. But a very simple thing that you can do is, if there are brands that you like, number one, follow them, engage with their content, and drop into their DMs. Somebody's job exists on the other side of that DM, is to read messages and to send it up the chain. Not likely you're going to talk to the CEO or the CMO or any C-suite executive, but you're going to talk to somebody whose job it is to make sure the social presence is good and they're getting good engagement. And what I simply write to them is, I love X, Y, and Z. I try to be very specific about what I love. And I say, I'm a fan and I would love to do a collaboration with you. If you're looking for evangelists or people to be spokespeople for what it is that you do, I'd love to be considered. It's how I get some things that I want and I don't want to pay for them. And when that relationship starts to build and they see that you're a genuine person, then they can say, look, there's a campaign coming up. We have X budget to do it. Is this of interest to you? And I like to start slow and build my way up so that you earn every little bit of trust that you're given.
I love that answer, because I don't, well, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm just bombarded with strangers on the internet asking to come on the podcast or just asking for things. I'm like, I don't know who you are. But I love the idea of going in and creating that natural conversation, saying, hey, I'm a fan of yours. You know, are there ways for us to collaborate in the future? I feel like it's a very genuine way of connecting on social media, where so many connections, I mean, let's be honest, are bots now, are AI generated. And it's a world of difference when you actually feel like you can know, like, and trust someone that's on the other side of that DM. So I love that answer. I think that so many creatives are, one of the struggles can be, how can I grow my account? How can I get those collaborations? How can I make those partnerships while still staying true to my artistic vision, to the things that I'm passionate about? And I know that, you know, you said for the future, you have a lot of opportunities coming your way because of, you know, the followers you have and the amazing content that you push out. But for somebody that's maybe still growing their account. They don't have the follower account that you do. How can you what kind of advice would you give to them about staying true to their artistic vision while also finding ways to become profitable?
Okay, it's a hard one to answer, but I'm going to say it. Don't be so quick to monetize. If I'm telling you my playbook, it's create value, show up consistently for people to give value, and not worry so much about the brand deals or selling a product or service that you have. The general feeling I get is, and I don't think I'm alone here, every time you give a piece of content that's valuable to people and you have a call to action, I think you steal away from the goodwill that you're creating, because then people read it and they're like, oh, this is so good. Oh, I see, because you want me to buy this. Oh, you want me to go to this event. Oh, you want me to vote for you or whatever it is. And I think it's okay, but you're treating the relationship as more of a transactional one versus a relational one. I want to build meaningful relationships with people that are going to take days, months, weeks, years to pay out, if ever. And I'm okay with that, because there's somebody who will come up to me 3 years later and say, I wasn't sure about you before. It took a while. I've dipped in, I've dipped out, but then you have this new thing that's coming up. I'd love to participate in that. And I'm good with that. And so I think the problem is so many people have such a desire to convert and to make money. They can't delay gratification. So they just ask for it right away. And you wear down people when you do that. And I'm really much more interested in building long-term brand value for people.
I think that that is so important. It's well, I mean, so for those who might not be familiar with the four-post strategy, it is about creating meaningful connections first and not really showing up just for those transactions. That's one of the things that drives me nuts about social media these days, Chris, is that it seems like everything's a transaction anymore. It's like, oh, well, like you said, what's your call to action? You don't you don't need to have a go to my website or click here to buy from me on every single post. Like that's not what social media was intended for. And the way that you're creating content, I feel like it's that give first mentality. Here is everything. Just imagine what it's like to work with me and talk with me, because I'm giving you all this for free. Just imagine what it's like when we work together. So I love that.
I do want to say too, if somebody's like, yeah, great for you all to say you're established or you're doing your thing or you have a different way of making money, what am I going to do? And I've come upon this concept more recently because somebody shared a different way of looking at this. His name is Ryan, and so Ryan knows who he is. He goes, if you give value all the time and you don't give the people an ability to pay you back, it's a lopsided relationship and they eventually become resentful. And that kind of took me aback a little bit because I've created content for years without asking for anything. In fact, many of the people who follow us on YouTube for years will be shocked to say, oh my God, I just found out recently you sell products. There's courses I can take. There's a coaching program. I'm like, yeah, if you looked, you would find it, but that's cool because I haven't really told you all that much about it, which I'm good with. But what Ryan told me was that if you do this, it's you pretty much kind of forcing on other people, like, I hold a superior position to you, I can afford to do this, and it makes people feel resentful after a while. So it's important for you every once in a while to say, if you'd like to support me, here's some cookies you can buy, here's a course you can purchase, or show up at my next event, I'd love to see you in person, so that they can feel like they can even the scale of debt. There's this kind of like a goodwill debt balance beam, and they want to be able to write that. It's called reciprocity. They want to reciprocate the value in which you've given them in some kind of way. Sometimes they just buy you pounds of chocolate, they buy you a book or books, and they send them to you. And I think that's awesome, because we don't want to feel like we're takers. We want to feel like we're contributing in some way. So make sure every once in a while you're telling them where to go and what to do. And you don't have to feel sleazy about it, because you've earned that right.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that sometimes what you're just sharing, though, Chris, is a little bit of a mindset shift, because often as business owners, I mean, we are trying to get more leads, we are trying to get more business, and it's a mindset shift of, I can give it all away for free. The right people will buy when they're ready, or they will reciprocate in a way that they can. Can you talk to us about a little bit about some maybe mindset shifts that have helped you grow your business to where it is today?
One mindset shift is that questions are more powerful than answers. I'll poll an audience. I'll ask them this question. I say, what's more valuable, questions or answers? And the audience will look at me like, what? And then some people will yell out answers. And some people will yell at questions. And I say, well, you're both right and you're both wrong. Okay. And we get into this whole thing. The people will yell out answers like, why? Tell me why. Because when I'm looking for a piece of information, I want the answer. And so I'm going to give people answers. And that is a classic response because we're trained to give answers. We're socialized to give answers all throughout primary and secondary school, graduate, undergraduate. We're giving people answers to tests. Raise your hand if you have to answer this question. There's value in giving answers. But then I flipped the script and I said, well, what about the people who said questions? Are questions more valuable than answers? And they said, yes. I said, if it is, why did you give me an answer? So you're both wrong, right? Because you have no way of understanding how I'm evaluating what is valuable or not. In the 21st century, with AI, answers have become really cheap. The machine already knows everything. It knows way more than you. It's already surpassed human intelligence. It's already surpassed the smartest person on earth kind of thing. And it's going to go way beyond that. Be smarter than all of humanity combined pretty soon. So when you try to give answers that the machine can give you faster, more accurately, what is the value of that piece of information? Zero or really close to it. What's really interesting is the machine has the answers. So what do we need to have? We need to have really good questions, thoughtful questions, nuanced questions, questions that really paint where the target is and has constraints to it. If you ever worked with AI and prompting, you realize the constraints are more powerful than the requests. Give me parameters to work within, and then it can really help you. And so questions go beyond that. So when you're given an answer, you should question the answer. This requires a level of critical thinking. Can you cross-reference this answer with other sources to verify this is true? And if it sounds funny, let's explore that together to see like why it sounds a little bit weird to me.
I think that about asking questions and I guess listening for answers, it's so true with the way that AI is now. And when I first started using I was doing it the wrong way. I was just I was coming in cold and just asking it for random things. It was, the poor AI was just hallucinating things to me. And it over the past year that I've been, well, I guess 2 years now that I've really incorporated AI into my everyday life, I've gotten much better at my prompting because it is about painting the picture, like you said, the right way so that the AI knows exactly what it is that it should be delivering to you. And I love that you found a way to bring that mindset question into AI, Chris. Well done. It's true. I think that everything that we're doing right now, it's changing. AI is changing the game for all of us. And we have to be more cognizant of how we're showing up, the questions we're asking, and the answers that we're getting. So for people that are listening right now, and maybe they're at a everyone's at different spots with their business, right? If someone's listening right now and they're saying, what's something that I could do right now, Chris, whether it's a mindset shift or, starting that YouTube channel, whatever it is, what are maybe 2 to 3 things that you'd recommend that a creative would start after listening to today's episode to start seeing some tangible results?
Okay, the number one skill that you have to develop in any form of content creation is this. It's to write, to be a better writer, to communicate more effectively, powerfully, to be able to say things in sound bites and to also be able to unpack that into 20, 30, 40-minute talks or workshops. It's very important. So a skill that I don't think was really championed in the last century has now become super important. Writing, communication, rhetoric, persuasive argument, those kinds of things are really, really important now, not just in the age of AI, but when we have an experience online, we are always questioning now, like, did AI write this? Are you a real person? But what we can't fake is when you and I are in a room together and you're throwing things at me that I cannot prepare for. So in that moment, you start to say like, yeah, he or she checks out. Yeah, that was good. Or if they're a hot mess and they can't communicate ideas, then you think, my God, was it all manufactured? So writing is now a core fundamental skill that you must have in the 21st century. And all good content comes from good writing. Now, writing doesn't have to be you sitting in front of the screen and smashing away at your keyboard. You could talk to the machine, but you have to be able to articulate your ideas in phrases and sentences and words that are very intentional, that are very purposeful, that help people to think about things in ways that they had not thought about before. And from that writing, if it's good, you can translate that into many different things, an audio only format, like what we're talking about, an ebook, an audiobook. You could do a multimedia presentation. You could present this. You could juggle chainsaws if you want while you're talking about it. You can have visual aids, and you can make it as engaging as you want to, but it has to begin from writing. People are very good at communication, at being able to distill down complex ideas simply, are going to rule the media game. And we can see that there's no surprise that some of the best authors are also the best influencers or thought leaders online.
Man, you took me totally out of what I thought you were going to go with that answer. And I love it because that was probably the last thing I would have expected you to say was writing, because that's what everyone is saying, like, oh, well, we don't need a writer anymore. I can use AI for that. But it's so true. If the better writer you are, and it helps you articulate better, it helps you understand, where people are coming from. I love that answer so much, and I think that it really, I hope it brings our audience back to the importance of you. And writing is a very important part, whether it's you just writing in a journal or if it is you just talking into your voice recorder. That's what I do, because I am a little bit more long-winded, and it takes me just as much time to get a full thing out in a voice memo than it does to actually write something. I'm way better at talking. Well, Chris, man, this was such an awesome conversation. To wrap it up, I would love it if you just left the listeners with one piece of advice, one piece of wisdom that they can leave today's episode with.
Sure. Let's assume you all want to make content. I've made over 1,300 videos on YouTube. I've been able to grow a following on multiple platforms. And the one key unlock, and there's many, but the biggest unlock first after making content. So you must make content, make it today, start now. Yesterday was a good time, but today's just as good a time. And when you're making content, the thing that held us back from growing our audience and getting the kind of traction that we wanted was we were designing content to sell a product. And the problem with that is we didn't sell products and we didn't grow an audience. So we've lost on both ends. And it wasn't until my partner and I decided, you know what, let's not make content to sell our product anymore. Let's just make content to help people, to create a transformative moment for them and give them actionable insights and share with them wholeheartedly without any strings attached. And let's do that. The minute we started to do that, we started to see our viewership change, our subscriber trajectory grow, and it sparked something inside of us that there's a natural born teacher inside of you that wants to play and not a marketer. So lean in more on the educator side than the marketer side. And I think you're going to grow your audience. You're going to find out more about yourself. You're going to get a lot of clarity, and it's going to help all aspects of your business. As long as you can delay asking for things, I think you're going to do great.
I love that answer so much. And honestly, it's what provided clarity for me to write my book, was just starting to talk regularly on the podcast about things that I was passionate about. And soon enough, I found there was an underlying theme, and that's when the social shift came to life. So I could not agree more. Chris, this has been such an amazing conversation. If people want to connect with you, they want to learn more about the future, tell us the best way to get in touch with you and to learn more about the future.
Absolutely. My personal account was the one that I write, control, no one else does. I respond to all the comments and the DMs. It's at the Chris Doe, and Doe is spelled D-O. If you want to follow the future is spelled funny. It's F-U-T-U-R. There's no E at the end. Couldn't buy it, couldn't afford it. So it's the futur, if you wish to say it in a French accent. So we're everywhere on all social platforms.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. I hope you're leaving with valuable insights and the inspiration to lead your market. If you've enjoyed our time together and found today's podcast episode useful, I have a small favor to ask of you. Please hit that subscribe button to stay updated with the latest episodes. And if you know someone who could benefit from these episodes, maybe a fellow business leader or an aspiring entrepreneur, go ahead and share this episode with them. Let's spread the knowledge and grow together. Also, I'd love to hear from you and continue the conversation beyond the podcast. Visit me at katiebrinkley.com to connect, to find more resources, or just to share your journey. And be sure to pick up your copy of my new book, The Social Shift, at katiebrinkley.com/book. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Katie Brinkley, and I can't wait to dive into more strategies and stories with you on the next episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing.
Let's keep on taking your marketing to new heights.